right, we're back for day 2 of algebra. So we're coming back to solving equations, right? Which we did a little bit of before, but we're going to solve equations that are a little bit more complicated. It's going to be lesson 1, 2 if you want to write your notebook. And they're going to have one variable in them, right? And a variable is just a letter that represents a number. So X, Y, you can use L, you can use B, but we're going to be solving equations with one variable. So here's our first example. In our first variable, we're going to use B. We're going to get away from always using X because then you guys can be more comfortable with other letters. So here is our first equation. So we have to figure out what number B has to be so that when I multiply it by 4 and add 14, I get 22. So you can probably already reason your way and think through that, right? But there's a systematic way you can figure it out, right? By using inverse operations, which we talked about before. So for example, I know I want to get this B by itself. I want to have B equal something. So we always got to get rid of this extra thing first. So what is the inverse or opposite of adding 14? That's subtracting 14. And then remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So this thing goes away because 14 minus 14 is 0. But I still have 4b over here. And on this side, I have 22 minus 14. 22 minus 14 is 8, right? 6 and 2 is 8. So I have that. All right, now I'm left with 4b equals 8. I need to get rid of this 4 because this b wants to be by himself. So b times 4, the inverse of times 4 is to divide by 4. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. My 4's cancel out because I now just have 1b, so I can write it like that. And b equals, well, 8 divided by 4, that's 2. So this is my answer. And remember, you can check it because I can say 4 times 2 plus 14. Does that equal 22? Let's check. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 14 equals 22. Yep, I'm right. Okay, now let's try another one. Let's get a little bit more challenging. Let's throw some negative numbers in there. This time we have negative 6k minus 3 equals 39. Need to solve for k. K equals something. I need to get rid of this minus 3 first. So what's the inverse operation to minus 3? The opposite of that is adding 3. Remember, you have to add it to both sides. That goes to 0, which is what I want. And 39 plus 3, well, that's 42. And over here, I still have minus 6k. I have to write that down. Bring it down. Don't forget that part. Now, I have negative 6k equals 42. So you could think to yourself, what does k have to be? What times negative 6 is going to give me 42? Well, first of all, I know k has to be a negative number because you end up with a positive, and a negative times a negative is the only way I'm going to get a positive. Or I can also think of the inverse operation. The opposite of multiplying by negative 6 is dividing by negative 6. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1, so I just have k over here. And 42 divided by negative 6 is negative 7. So there is my answer. And then I can check. Negative 6 times negative 7 minus 3. Do I get 39? Negative 6 times negative 7, that's 42. Minus 3, yep, that's 39. Check. Okay, let's get a little bit more complicated. Okay, this one has a lot more numbers in it. 15 take away 2. 2 is multiplied by this whole expression here, 3 minus 2x, equals 46. So I need to get this x by itself, okay? But I can't get this x by itself until I get rid of this 3, this 2, this 15, and then finally get rid of that negative 2, right? So I can't deal with anything here in the parentheses until they're gone. So I have to distribute, and hopefully you guys remember what this means. So this means, for example, no, I'm not going to show you. So what I have to do is multiply each part of this expression by negative 2, because this number is not positive 2, it's negative 2. So I have to take negative 2 and multiply it by 3, and then I have to take negative 2 and multiply it by negative 2x. So let's do that first. First, I'm going to copy down my 15, because that's still there. I'm not dealing with it yet. I'm just going to deal with this part right here. So first step, negative 2 times 3. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. So I can write down negative 6. Negative 2 times negative 2x. Well, what's negative 2 times negative 2? It's just positive 4, and there's an x on it, so it's just positive 4x, right? So I distributed that negative 2 into the parentheses, so now it's gone. And what's left on the other side? Equals 46. All right, now I'm getting a little closer to finishing this problem. Over here I have 15 minus 6 plus 4x, and then I have equals 46. So now what we're going to do is the thing called combining like terms. So I have this one number with an x in it, but then I have two regular old numbers. They're the same. They're regular old numbers, so I can combine them. So what is 15 take away 6? Can solve that first. What's 9? Now I still have plus 4x, and I still have 46. Now I'm at the point of the equation where it looks like it did before. And now hopefully you guys can see how you solve it. Solving for x, first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this extra 9 over here. The opposite of adding 9 is subtracting 9. That goes away at 0. 46 minus 9 is 35. And what's left over here is 4x. Okay, the opposite of multiplying x by 4 is dividing x by 4. So x equals 35 over 4. I can just leave it like that, right? It's an improper fraction. So if you don't like that, you could say 8 times 4 is 32, right? So that would be 8 3/4. Is that right? Is the mixed number? If you want to remember how to do that, you would do 35 divided by 4. How many 4s are in 35? Well, that's 8, right? Take away 32, 3 remainder. So your mixed number is 8 3/4. So either of those are correct, right? 35 over 4 or 8 3/4. All right, we're going to do one more example before you get to practice. We're going to add one more level of challenge and put some fractions in it. Okay, so this one, we're solving for y. The tricky part is there's two y's. So we need to put those together. The same way we put our 15 and our 6 together here because they were the same type of number, we combined like terms, we also have to put these y's together. So I need to take this y and move it over here or the other way around, right? But to me, it makes sense because we want the y's together on one side of the equation and we want the number on the other side. So I'm going to move this y over there. Okay, this is a positive 2/3 y. So if I want to get rid of it, I need to subtract 2/3 y. Why? Because 2/3 y minus 2/3 y is 0, and that's what we want. But whatever I do to the left side, I also have to do the right. So what do I have here? This looks really complicated. I have 1y take away 2/3 y, right? Because there's a 1 there. So just for a second, because they're both y's, you can almost ignore those and just think about this math problem you have here. 1 take away 2/3. If I have a whole cake and someone comes and takes away 2/3 of it, I have a third of it left. And then I just stick that y back on the end. So what am I left with? Well, over here on the left side, I still have minus 2/5 because this thing went away. And now on the right side, I just figured out y minus 2/3 y is just 1/3 y. Okay, so now I'm at the same step as before. If I'm solving for y, I got to get rid of this 1/3. It's 1/3 times y. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 1/3? Dividing each side by 1/3. That goes away, right? Because 1/3 divided by 1/3 is 1. So what does y equal? Well, y equals whatever the heck in the world negative 2/5 divided by 1/3 is. So I'm just going to come over here and do that in my thought bubble. Negative 2/5 divided by 1/3. That's what I have to figure out. So now you have to think back to when you solved fractions. And hopefully you remember when you divide fractions, you keep, change, flip. You keep the first one the same. You change division to multiplication, and then you flip the second fraction over, 3/1. So now you can just multiply across. Negative 2 times, well, yeah, let's do this. It's a negative times a positive, so I know that my answer is going to be negative, right? 2 times 3 is 6, and 5 times 1 is 5. So my answer is negative 6/5 equals y. So that's a correct answer, but I could also write it like this, remember, because it's an improper fraction. Either of those answers are correct. I'm not going to get too picky about which way you write it. Okay, but you might have to know if a question's multiple choice, that if you get this answer, that it also is equivalent to that. Okay, a lot of new information today. We're going to practice for a few days. So don't worry if you're not quite understanding it yet, okay?